Rain came down in cold sheets against the apartment window, a rhythm that had become the soundtrack to Miles Harrow's obsession. His small desk was buried under stacks of dusty books, faded news clippings, and old maps curling at the edges. The room smelled of ink and damp paper. He hadn't slept properly in days. For months, he'd been following whispers about a town that shouldn't exist, a ghost settlement called Greywick Hollow, said to appear only once every leap year. Some stories claim travelers stumbled upon it by mistake, wandering through the forest to find a living town trapped in another time. Others swore they'd seen lights glowing in the mist on February 29th, and then nothing. No trace. Miles wanted proof. At 1:12 a.m., his laptop pinged. An email, no sender, no subject. His pulse quickened. He clicked it open. "You're getting close." There was an attachment, a grainy scan of a 1972 topographic map. The image was dark, the forest lines thick like veins. A single red circle was drawn deep within the northern ridge. Beneath it, scrawled in a slanted hand, "Only appears every 29th of February. Do not stay past midnight." Before he could react, the email vanished. Deleted itself. The cursor blinked on a blank screen. The lights flickered. The hum of his computer filled the silence. He sat still for nearly a minute, staring at his own reflection in the dark monitor, eyes wide, hair unkempt, the look of a man already too deep in the wrong kind of mystery. Outside, thunder rolled. It sounded almost like a warning. 3 days later, Miles sat in a lonely roadside diner glowing under a flickering neon sign. A half-empty cup of coffee steamed in front of him as rain drummed softly on the glass. Across the booth sat Nina Torres, his closest friend and sound engineer, and Eli Crane, a freelance drone operator with more sarcasm than sense. Miles spread out a printed copy of the same map. "Here," he said, tapping the red circle. "Greywick Hollow. It's real. We'll film everything before anyone else ever does." Eli raised an eyebrow. "You're talking about a town that magically appears once every 4 years, dude. You realize how that sounds?" "It sounds like an opportunity," Miles shot back. Nina steadied the map quietly. Her fingertips traced the red circle, eyes narrowing. "If it's real, we don't just film it. We document what happens to it." That sealed it. No one said the word yes, but they all felt it. By midnight, their van was packed, batteries, night vision cameras, motion sensors, audio recorders, and enough food to last 2 days. The calendar read February 28th. 1 day before the leap. The road north was a narrow artery of cracked asphalt swallowed by pines. Fog coiled low around the tires, swallowing the van's headlights. The GPS blinked uselessly between no signal and a blank screen. Even the compass spun. Eli drove. Nina watched the forest. Miles filmed everything. At some point, the pavement turned to gravel and then to dirt. Finally, the road simply ended. No signs. No paths. Just a wall of mist and trees. "This is where it ends," Eli muttered, cutting the engine. "No," Miles said, staring at the map. "This is where it begins." They camped beside the van. The forest was deathly quiet. No wind. No insects. Just a stillness that pressed on their ears. At 11:59 p.m., Nina's recorder picked up a faint electrical hum. The sound came from nowhere and everywhere at once, like the forest itself was alive. Then, in the distance, a faint light flickered. And another. Through the trees, street lights began to turn on, one by one, cutting a glowing path through the mist. A paved road shimmered into existence, leading toward the impossible, the ghostly silhouette of rooftops in the fog. Miles whispered, "It's real." Eli's hands trembled on the steering wheel. "We're not supposed to see this." By dawn, the fog lifted just enough to reveal the town. Greywick Hollow. Rows of modest houses lined the street, their paint faded but intact. 1960s cars sat at the curbs, coated in dust yet untouched by decay. Storefronts advertised nickel coffee, fresh bread, and movie matinees that hadn't played in 50 years. Miles lifted his camera. February 29th, he said softly. Greywick Hollow exists. They explored in stunned silence. Inside the diner, plates of half-eaten food waited as if their owners had vanished mid-bite. The coffee in the pot was cold but still smelled faintly roasted. A jukebox hummed softly, unplugged, but somehow alive. Eli sent his drone up to capture the town from above. From the sky, the streets formed perfect spirals converging on a church with a cracked bell tower. Then, mid-flight, the feed cut to static. When he replayed the final frame, his stomach dropped. A figure, blurred, faceless, stood in the middle of the street, looking up directly into the drone's camera. Nina swallowed hard. "Did you see anyone out there?" Eli shook his head. "No one. Just that." As night fell again, they set up camp inside the town hall. The air was thick and stale, smelling of paper and rust. Dust danced in flashlight beams as Nina adjusted her mics. The portraits of the town's old mayors lined the wall, every one of them smiling too wide, eyes slightly off-center, as though they knew something the living did not. At 11:45 p.m., one of the monitors flickered. Nina leaned closer. Outside the hall, half shrouded by fog, stood the same figure from the drone footage. Motionless. Watching. Miles gripped his camera. "If anyone's out there," he said, voice trembling, "we just want to talk." The fog pressed against the windows, swallowing the world outside. Then, the church bell rang once. Midnight. Every light in the town blinked out in a single pulse. Buildings rippled, their outlines blurring like images on melting film. Fog poured through open doors, spilling across the floor. The ground itself began to fade, the cobblestones turning translucent beneath their feet. "It's disappearing." Nina screamed. "Run!" Miles shouted. They bolted through the main street toward the van, but the road they'd come from was gone, replaced by an endless wall of swirling mist. Cameras flickered. Their audio warped. Somewhere in the haze, footsteps echoed that weren't theirs. The figure appeared again, closer now, emerging from the mist. But this time there were three. Each one looked like them, distorted reflections mimicking their every movement. Nina's voice cracked. "It's copying us." Eli stumbled backward, his flashlight trembling. The beam passed through the doppelgangers, and showed nothing but air. Yet when he turned around, one stood behind him, face inches away, its mouth moving in silent imitation. Static screamed through the recorders. Miles' last shot caught the blur of fog in motion before the lens went black. When the forest rangers arrived 3 days later, they followed a faint emergency signal trace to coordinates that didn't exist on any state map. They found a van half sunken in mud, its windshield shattered, doors hanging open. Inside were 3 cameras, all drained of power but still warm to the touch. The last recording showed Miles' camera pointing at the fog. His voice, panicked and distant, whispered, "It's real. It's watching. Don't stay past midnight." Then, silence. The final timestamp on every device read 11:59 p.m., February 29th. When dawn came on March 1st, there was no sign of a town, no sign of buildings or streets, only endless forest. Pinned to an oak tree near the clearing was a single item, the 1972 map, its paper dry despite the rain. A fresh red circle was drawn deeper into the forest, marking a new location. Beneath it, a handwritten note. "Next leap year. Bring more lights." People say that every 4 years, when February returns with its hidden day, strange lights appear again in that same forest. Hikers claim they hear a low humming, like distant machinery. Others swear they've found old cameras, rusted and broken, half buried in the dirt, footage corrupted, but voices still faintly audible beneath the static. A man's voice whispering, "Greywick Hollow exists." A woman screaming, "It's copying us." And then, the toll of a bell that no one can find. Whatever Greywick Hollow is, a curse, a fold in time, or a place that was never supposed to be, it waits patiently for the next 29th of February. And somewhere in that endless mist, 3 shadows still wander, repeating the same words forever. It's real. Don't look at it. Run.